All right. Get this going. Should kick up any time. All right. All right. Welcome in, guys. Blues. Good to see you in the chat. Thank you, sir, for hanging out with me tonight. So I got a number of things printed uh, since last week. All kind of in preparation of kind of some of these shows that I wanted to come on here and actually help explain some of the mint errors that we find, and basically to show, to walk through how they actually work and what actually causes them. What I have is I have um, my table of science, as I'll call it. And these are all individual things that I have 3D printed to help with uh, demonstrating how these errors occur. So my friends tonight will be some silly putty and potentially some Play-Doh. Because if you're not playing with Play-Doh, then you're not playing at all. So some examples of some of the dies that I have made, that I have manufactured is I've got a $half die. It's that one right there. This is also a $half die. This is a die blank. So when the dies are first made, before they are pressed into hubs, which I haven't had printed out yet, but they look like this. So it's got this cone, and that creates enough material on the top end of this. So when it's squeezed down to make um, an actual die, there's enough material there to go into all of the recesses, so that it can be condensed down. So um, Plato Plato rules, yeah. So this is what a blank die looks like before it is manufactured into a master hub, a master die, anything like that. Some examples that I have over here. I've got a couple of dimes, and then I also have, I believe I got one nickel and one cent that I've printed out. And these are all based off of the examples of that I've been able to find for the mint specifications on each of these dies. So I basically, and then down here, the ones I'm playing with today are going to be quarters. So I've got 2 quarter dies that I'm using for tonight's example. So I also made some quarter planchets here. And I've got some silly putty already made up. I have one example of a collar, and then I also have half a collar, just so I can show kind of what the process looks like as it's cut away. So that kind of goes through the initial kind of this is my setup. So individually, what we are going to do is I'm going to walk through some examples of mint errors um, and basically what causes them. So what I'm going to be using is I'm going to be using my quarter die right here, and then this is a replica of a collar. Real collars are going to be either one full collar or a 3-piece collar, specifically on the quarter where it's got the ridges on the outside. That's going to be inside the collar. I don't have that on this one, but this gives us a nice usage for making a coin. Okay, so let's go through. We're just going to step through what the actual process is for coins to be struck. So For coins that that need to be struck, I actually have some penny examples of the materials that you're gonna need. So the first thing that you're gonna need is a blank. Looks like this. So this is a penny example. So it's just cut out. It's got really flat edges. See if I can get that a little bit better. It's got flat edges and there's no texture to it. There's no rims or anything on it. It's just a flat piece after it's been cut out of the strip. And that's basically something that's blanked. Okay, so that's a blank. Then it goes through and it gets the rim. And you can see the rim right here. I'm going to try to get real close. Yeah, you can see the rim right up here. And so that's what's called, it goes through an upset machine. And the upset mill basically rolls our blank against a channel that's just a tiny bit smaller than the blank. And that creates this nice edge up, and then it gives us the little lip on the edge of the coin. So that's our unplated planchet right there. So next it gets plated. So after it gets plated, it's going to look like this. This is what your standard zinc blank planchet is going to look like. It's going to be this same thing, only it's plated. And then we get to the actual coin after it's struck. So it's going to look something like this. What's up, Coin Dragon? How's it going, man? So this is what our coin looks like after it's been struck, and we've got two sides. So we need two dies. One is the reverse, one is the obverse. For my examples tonight, I will be going through using the sense of a vertical press, just for ease of understanding. The mints, however, have been using horizontal presses, so they can get a lot more coinage struck, and also it's less damaging to the floors, because with the vertical presses, they were causing a lot of damage to the floors. So they went to horizontal where they could dampen them. But for this example, it's going to be basically a vertical press, just for the sake of understanding. Okay. What's up, Coin Junkie? How's it going? So let's talk about a few things to begin with. So for every coin, there is an obverse and a reverse. So you always have two dies. And those two dies will be in a vertical orientation, just like this. And in the space that is in between these two dies, that's where your coin is actually struck. So, for example, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a. It's a really loose. It's a terrible example, I know. So this is going to be if a collar was in place, and then a planchet goes into the space in between. Okay. This space in between, when the second die comes down, let's see if I can do this one-handed. So when the second die comes down and it strikes here, this space in between the two die faces and this collar, that's your striking chamber. That's where your coin is actually struck. So if I'm going to take my example quarter right here, that exactly fits this to the T, or did 2 seconds ago when I tried this. Okay, let's try this. So that right there is what it would look like at the time of the coin is actually struck. So the collar would be just a little bit higher than the actual base of the die, so it would look kind of like that. I can use this as a better example. I'm gonna put my my real collar on here. Okay. So this is what it's going to look like. So it's got this little indent in this space. So in this space right here, when your hammer die comes down and it actually hits that space in between, that's where the coin is actually being struck. So this is my example of a planchet, so you can get an idea of how it comes down and it strikes the planchet right there. Yeah, Coin Dragon, how fast it's happening. This is happening thousands of times per minute. So for example, I'm going to use my Silly Putty medium. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a coin. So I'm going to strike it. And there is my coin. So you can see it's going to have whatever design is on the obverse and whatever design is on the reverse. And then it's going to have the edge that is held in place by this collar. Now, let's take our planchet, or something resembling a planchet, and then we are going to broad strike it. So broad strike. It's struck out of collar. So broad strike. So normally your normal coin strike is going to be, that's a little center, is going to have a gap in between here and the collar. So your planchet goes in here, and that's when it's struck. Now, if for whatever reason the collar gets stuck or fails to deploy correctly, then you have this. So if you were to look at the edge of this, it's completely flat right here. So there's nowhere for the planchet to land so that it could actually be in the striking chamber. So we're going to take our planchet and we're going to put it right here. And then we're going to broad strike it. So I'm just going to set it right on the top there. So this example right here, before I push it down, this is the prime example of what a broad strike is. The retaining collar has failed to deploy correctly. So when this is struck, it's gonna mushroom out. So I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to mushroom it out. So you can see how much that it has mushroomed out all the way around. So now, so there is my broad struck. So broad strucks, since they're done out of collar, are always going to be bigger diameter because the collar is not in place to hold it together. So broad strikes will always be larger than the actual normal what the coin should be. So I'm gonna make another coin real quick because there is another example that I would like to use that has another example. Okay, so there's our planchet. So this example is going to be a off center. So for this example, our coin is not going to make it inside, all the way inside the striking chamber, which it should go all the way in, but it's not going to make it all the way in, right? So this one we're going to go for maybe a 50% off center. So same thing goes, is that the die is going to come down. This is the hammer die. This is the anvil die. Collar's in place. So this is going to come down and it's going to strike the coin. I'm just going to put that right there. And that gives you your off center. So that's a lot more than 50% off center. But that's a really good example of this would be the coin that you would see, and then all of this would be unstruck material. So when you find off centers, this this exactly is what it is that the coin, the planchet never made it and seated fully into the striking chamber, so it missed, and this is what it looks like. So these are just a couple examples. So if you guys have any questions about the ones that I've shown so far, please put those in the chat. Um, and then I'll show some more examples. Just need to make myself another coin here. Yes, coin dragon swinging a mess. Absolutely, man. Do do do. Oh, here's actually a really good one that I just thought of right now. So we have heard of finning before, and that's when the die is struck. When the die is struck with too much pressure, and the material fins up over the top. Sorry, I'm trying to get this focused here. So the material fins up over the top outside of the striking chamber. So this is fitting right here. So when I pull this out, so you can see all of this edge right here is all finned up. Finnegan. So I've got examples of broad strike. I've got examples of off centers. Um, what else do you guys want to see? Well, this is silly putty, not Play-Doh, so I mean, it works. Yeah, this is the silly putty. The Play-Doh that I haven't taken out yet, just in case, is yellow. So I may still I may still use that. We can do die caps. So same example if we have struck throughs. That's a good one. Struck throughs. Good call. Good call, Blues. Okay, let's do some struck throughs. So we're gonna get our coin set up here. I'm gonna make a coin real fast. Okay. So there's our planchet. So now I'm gonna get my collar in place. And for this example, I'm gonna put my we're going to here one of those little wire ties. So struck through wire tie. So here's the example. Again, it's going to be a struck through, so it's going to be something like this. And boop. So here's your struck through, and that's what you're looking for. So if I pull this out, this is really good at making. There is your struck through coin. Is that one right there? So let's do uncentered broad strike. Okay. So we are gonna. I'm gonna do my little make my little thing. Okay, so an uncentered broad strike. So our example is that our collar, uh, right, Frank. So on broad strikes, we have to remember that the collar has failed. It has failed to deploy. So what we're looking at is we're looking at the basically this flat surface, and it's not creating a proper striking chamber right here. So in an uncentered broad strike, we have our broad strike, right, which is outside. What's up, Bigfoot? Which is a strike outside of the collar, right? Because the collar's not deployed, but now we're gonna off center it. So maybe the feeder finger got it offset to the side, just like this. So if we hit this, there is our off-centered broad strike. And this has been a really good medium to show that. So when your coin looks like that, your diameter, again, your broad strike, your diameter is going to be a lot wider than the actual coin because it struck outside the collar, because it's not inside that striking chamber. So when you have an off-center broad strike, you're going to have it bigger than the actual diameter of the planchet, and it's going to be off-centered. How do you know if it's an off-center broad strike versus off-center strike? That was not 240 tons per square. Okay, Frank, you got me on that one. Off-center strike. Kind of what I just described. I would think, Paula, is the off-center broad strike. The actual part that's struck is gonna be wider than the normal planchet because it struck outside of the collar. Now, if you had an off-center strike, so let's do that one again. Because if you had an off-center strike, then with the collar in place, that you're still gonna have some of this. So you're still gonna have that. So this would be an off-center strike. Yeah, right, Bigfoot. Only the only difference is that we've upgraded a plate to silly putty, um, but um, but our tools are a little bit better. So let's do the other thing that I thought of is if we had, say, a thin, oops, got a hair in there, a thin planchet. So this planchet is going to be much thinner. As you can see in the striking chamber, it's not the right size. So this would be an example if it was something that was struck on the wrong planchet. So I'm going to strike this one. So ideally, since this planchet is much thinner, that it would have really weak designs because there's not enough material to fill out the designs on both sides. So that would be like a struck on well, on incorrect planchet, or it could also be a light strike. But for this example, it's going to be like a wrong planchet. It's going to be something like that, based off of the thickness of the actual planchet. Uncenter broad strike still shows all of the design. All uncentered broad strikes are off-centered. The striker pressure on an uncentered broad strike is enough to fill off the design. Yeah, well, yeah, broad strikes, since it happens outside the collar, um, or outside the collar, so the overall diameter is going to be bigger than a normal planchet would come out. We know how clips work. So clips are coming from the, let me put this, from the actual minting, from before it was a, this is my really poor example. Okay, I'm going to use this one. Okay, so we know that when coins are clipped out or punched out from their strips, that the punches are basically round, and um, if the strip lands in a weird position, then potentially it could come across something that it had already cut. So I could do this. We're playing it. We're playing it tonight. So I'm gonna make me a little sheet here. Make me a little sheet. Okay. This is a really rough example, but let's see if I can throw this up here. Okay. Oh, you're part of it now. Okay. So, the blank comes down, the blanky die comes down, and basically cuts out a blank just like that. Okay. Now, if the sheet or the roll of material that is coming through gets offset, then what you'll have is, let's see if I don't know if I can actually cut that out. So what you'll have is you'll have it come down and cut another one. But since this one right here is already cut out, then that's how you get a clip out of the this is a terrible example. Okay. Stand by. Play-Doh it is. God, it's already in my fingernails. How did that happen? Okay. Okay, so this is our example sheet that we have coming through. So we're just gonna cut one out. Oh, this is a terrible example. Sorry, guys. This is not working out at all how I thought it was going to. Okay. Okay, so this is a very, very terrible, terrible example. But so you already have a piece cut out of the sheet. So now when it goes in and it cuts again, that's not working out. My cutter is not doing very well at cutting. That's unfortunate. My cutter needs better cutter. Sorry, guys. Okay. Gosh, I don't think I have anything else actually. Let's try this. Okay, this is getting my blinky die. We're in business now. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Sheet coming through. It's already cut. Already cut a um blank out, and then if something happens and it's offset, then what you're gonna have is that you are going to have one that has a little clip right on the edge. And that's how you get clipped planchets. So the other thing that can happen is for whatever reason that need coin die sugar cookies and coffee. Yeah, for reals. So this is an example of a clipped planchet. Now, it could be really small, the clip, or it could be really big, or depending on if it's like on the edge, then you could have a straight clip. So if for some reason it's like at the end of a roll, then you could have a let's see. You get us something like this, where it's cut out, but it's at the end of a roll or something, so that's where you get a straight edge, and that would be a straight clip. Okay. Okay, so what other mint errors would you guys want to see acted out? I have dies. I don't have examples of like double dies very very good because I don't have one that has details on it. Uh Cuddly? Oh, like a okay. I could probably do that. Okay. So going back to our dies. So what happens is that if as long as the die is getting used, there's a ton of pressure, tons and tons of pressure on the face of this die. I actually, I, Coin Dragon, I do not have one currently, but I can definitely make one. Um, but I can still explain it. So if in the event that there is a piece that breaks off the face of this die, then that die. Let me get my collar back on. that die does not have a solid face to strike with. So then what happens is that the material instead of being contained inside this striking chamber actually fills up the face of the die, and that's where you get a cut or cut on coin. Because that is actually the absence of a section of the die face. Blue says mule. Okay. So a mule we know is when two different dies are used for a strike. So for this example, I'm going to use this is going to be kind of an extreme example, but I'm going to go ahead and use a nickel and a quarter one. Again, this is extreme, but this will technically work. Okay, so same setup we have is the anvil die and the collars is in place. It does create a striking chamber. So then when this comes down, what you have is that you have the die face of a nickel. So this happens to be the hammer die. So this would be the obverse, and the anvil die, which is going to be the reverse. So you would have a nickel obverse and quarter reverse. Now, because the quarters and the small dollars are very similar in size, yield CHAG. Because these two coins are so similar in size, I mean, there's very little difference between them. So what you can have is that you can have as a quarter one side, right? And then you could have a small dollar on the opposite side. So I'm just gonna use this. Nope, I'm not. Can we use a $0.50? Okay, so I'm gonna use my $0.50 die. So you get the quarter on one side, and then you can have the dollar on the other side. So this would be a mule, and this happens to be one mule that was actually found. So where it has a Sacagawea on one side and a Washington quarter on the other side, but that would be a mule. So a mule could also be of two different dies of the same denomination, just different styles. So there could be one that is like a business strike and one a proof unintentionally. That could technically be a mule. And there's a few other examples, but that's a mule for those that don't know what that one is. Yeah, those Sacagawea mules are something crazy. Rotated die errors. So rotated die, it's gonna be harder to show. But what I will do is, so I've got two flat edges on these dies. I've got one here, and then I've got one on this one. So what I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark these two edges. Okay. Oh, pen's gone. It fell. It's gone. Okay. So a rotated die is going to be where normally these are going to match up more or less, because they're in fixtures and they have these spots to keep them in place. That's what these and they have them on all the dies. They have these flat spots because that's where they put um, like Allen socket head screws or whatever to keep them in place. So what's going to happen in a rotated die is that you're going to have, if this is the normal striking setup, then what you're going to have is that you're going to have, if one is installed incorrectly, such as this, then your uh is it called a chuck liquid drills? I believe so. I mean, the way it's described in some of the mint materials is going to be um it is like it's an assembly because it's a bunch of different parts put together, and they put this in an entire assembly into the machine because they have different collars and different configurations depending on what dies are used. So in this example, the obverse is rotated by, I don't know, 10 degrees. We'll just say that. So what you're going to have is that when this coin is struck, instead of being coin alignment, which is if you look at it this side, if you flip it up over end, then it's going to be upright the other side. If you did the same thing, then what you're going to have is that you're going to have an offset of one side. So one side is going to be straight, then when you flip it back over, it's going to be offset like that. And it's the way that it's put into the machine for rotated dies. I don't know how I immediately got all of this Play-Doh underneath my fingernails. What other ones do you guys want to see? Yeah, yeah, blues. This stuff is really cool. It's really cool to be able to basically work out, hey, this is how this stuff happens. Sometimes the nubbins wear down on the dies rotate. Yeah. Sometimes they are just put into these to the assembly correctly too, and they're not tightened down. Um, Sounds like a cookie. Hey, Paula, nubbins can be the technical term for tonight. How about that? So I've seen pictures of some of these assemblies, and some of these assemblies have either a single piece collar. Some of them have a three-piece collar, and they're screwed together. And then some of the coins even have, especially some of the older ones that have lettering on the edge, actually um, come from devices in on the collar itself, and that's where they're getting them. Now those are older ones, um, but some of the newer ones, they have a separate machine like the one that does the upset mill, that creates the rim, that has the lettering um, uh, pieces, and they just roll the coin across those letters to create the edge lettering. Segmented collars are now mainly used on proof dollar coins. Yeah, what's really cool is that if you actually look at the edge of some of those coins, especially with the ones that are serrated, you can actually see the individual lines, that if there is a small gap in between the segmented pieces where a little bit of metal flow went into that small gap because of the force that's being pushed in this striking chamber. If you have just a little tiny gap of where two pieces of color come together, then you could have metal being pushed out into that. You want to see a big old collar crack? Yeah, for sure. Bigfoot, I'm sorry, man. That's um I could not remember. I know it's an Allen head screw. And it's usually, but there is a certain term for it. It's like a retention screw or something like that, but yeah, so there are different colors that go to different coins. Clashes. Okay. Yeah, we can do clashes. Let's do okay, so clashes, I'm gonna use this example that is outside of outside of the collar. Actually, let's do this. Okay, clashes. Okay, so clashes is when you have a two dies that come together to strike, and there is no planchet or coin between them. Normally, it should look like this, where there's my little coin that's in there, and it comes down, and it does a lot of squishy right here, and then your coin is kicked out, and then that's how you have your coin. But in the absence of having a coin there, and the dice come down and they hit, this is your clash. This is how you get the reverse design from the anvil die on the obverse or hammer die, and vice versa. So, and because these are set up to be 180 degrees apart from each other, so here's our two pieces, right? So the normal configuration is here. So our standard configuration is here, which creates our coin to have an up-down coin alignment. So that's where you have your two dies that come down without a planchet right here in the middle, and then your designs are then transferred in between the two die faces. So what they have to do is they have to take the two die faces and they have to basically braid away the clash to try to get back to the original design. And if they are go too hard and start removing design, well, that's how your 1969 floating roof on the Lincoln set happens. Is because it was a clash and they had braided away all of the design, braided away the face of the die, which braided away part of the design, which left the roof floating and not connected. So you can find coins that are then, after the clash happened, coins that are then struck. 3 cents are in a great example of dies that were clashed and continued to be used. So 3 cents are very, very, very common to be found with clash marks. So and with the 3 centers, if you can find 3 centers that don't have clash marks, those are actually more um, more uncommon to find without clash marks the way that they use them. But that's when you have this moment in time that you have a clash, and then you have to fix the dies. So the other thing that can happen is that they can clash and basically shatter, and then the mint will pull the dies out of service and just replace them with new dies. Yeah, no FGs is another one that um, either to clean up the face of a die after a clash, or to extend the life of a die. They would very heavily abrade and try to clean up the design um, for some of those reasons, and that often removed design features. So the 1969 floating roof, the Kennedy no FGs, like those are all examples of heavily abraded dies that are losing design details. And that is a Clash. Yeah, there is some really good talking points and references over um, on Error but one of the biggest things that I wanted to be able to do is to show how these things actually happen, because it's great to read about it, but to actually see, hey, this is what happens in a rough sense of how a mint error actually occurred, then you can get a much better understanding. Philadelphia, for the longest time, it was either the only mint or the oldest mint. So they didn't have to specify um they didn't have to put a mint mark on it, because they didn't have to have to ever specify which mint it came from. Philadelphia is the oldest mint, and it's actually the actual sign on the building, and one of the first buildings was Ye Old Mint. And Blues and I actually made um, a video on all of the mints, and we talked about all of the mints that the U.S. has used. And because Philadelphia was the first and has been around the longest, they've never had to specify their coins versus anything else. So that's one of the biggest reasons why Philadelphia has not used the P Mint mark. Thanks for coming in, Coin Dragon. I appreciate you stopping in, man. Vertical misalignment. Vertical misalignment. Tilted die. So a tilted die error. Okay. Yeah, we can do that. So let me get my fake coin in here. Fake coin in here. Okay. So we're gonna do. So we're gonna do. Okay. So what we are going to do, there is our planchet. And what we are going to do is, so a tilted die, to give you guys an example. So we'll do this. So a tilted die. Now this is going to be an exaggerated an exaggerated example, but a tilted die is going to be when the die is actually installed offset. So again, this is extreme, but what you're going to do, what you're going to have, get rid of my color here. What you're going to have is you're going to have a strike that looks like this. Right here. So you'll have a really, really heavier, strong strike on one side and a really light strike on the other side. So, which technically, if it is struck within collar, like it could still, like it can still strike the coin. Again, this is a very, very exaggerated example, and you won't find coins look like this. But even if it's just a little bit, it could affect affect the coin. So we're gonna throw our planchet in here, and we are going to offset or misaligned. You said vertical tilted die. Yeah, tilted die. So tilted die. So again, this is a really extreme example, but this essentially, like, it's not installed correctly, so it's not square, and it should be square. So what you could have is that you could have a coin that is thinner on one side and thicker on the other side. So that could be an indication of a tilted die error. which is an installation error of the die. Alexander says, I have flips with 1 cents and someone marked on certain flips date and then question mark. They must not have understood if mint marked P is still plain, which is okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. That's my next planchet. Yeah, the all of these things, like the biggest thing to take into account is that all of these presses um um are mechanical machines. So you're gonna have things like tolerances. You're gonna have things like stacking tolerances. You're gonna have things like a play in adjustments. Um, there is um, like just the usage of the machines that they start to break down, and when they have something loose or loose over time or not correctly or not installed correctly, you know, there's all bunches and bunches of different variables that can go into kind of some of the errors that we see, because this is still machinery, and as the machinery gets used, it um, changes over time, because there's no machine that you can put together and have it run the same way perfectly forever. Like there's going to be little pieces here and there that change over time based off of usage. Now they have a lot of different machines, which is important because the mint is making 5 billion coins on like the cents. So it's a lot more quantity. So the more chances that you have for something to go wrong over that amount of time with that many items is that you're generally going to find more. Yeah, if something was off, you would probably most definitely hear something as off. So especially when they had a clash die or yeah, die clash, like I can imagine that's something that you could probably detect pretty quickly because it would be loud. Chatter, like machine doubling, die deterioration. Die deterioration is a breakdown of just the metal on in the die face. Machine doubling could be an indication of something mechanically breaking down or mechanically loose, that allows that coin to basically be struck twice before exiting the striking chamber, or also on its way of exiting out of the striking chamber, because you can actually get a machine doubled coin where it leaves the striking chamber with so much power, I guess, or so much speed that it actually bounces up and hits the die face, and basically it creates another image. But yeah, I can imagine like walking around a machine shop and hearing like a spindle off or something, and immediately tell them to I'm sorry, immediately like hear that and say, okay, there's something up. Like I need to go figure out what it is. Yeah, ejection doubling. When the sealing coins with machine doubling, they stop the presses and tighten all the screws. Right, but how often with the quantity that is being produced, how often are they taking samples from the bag or um from the tray of struck coins? How often are they taking samples of that to find machine doubling? Blues. With some of the stuff leaving the mint, the workers are deaf and blind. No, no, I wouldn't say they're deaf and blind. I would say that there are some very striking examples of things that normally you would think would not be able to leave the mint. However, they have been able to leave the mint. Every few thousand, that could be every few thousand, could be almost minutes apart, like 15 minutes. Like they are making them at such an extreme pace. That's Mondays and Fridays Bigfoot. Yeah, that's yeah, for sure. Alexander, the Mint has actually put out virtual tours of some of their facilities. So I've watched Philadelphia and Denver so far. But they are really neat where they walk through the actual coining process all the way from the giant spools of metal going into the blanking machine, all the way to being struck into coins. So it's really neat. So if you get a chance, go to the U.S. Mint's uh, channel, and they have videos on their channel. But it's really cool to see. They have a like a digital layout of the building, and all the different stations and how it goes across, and you can see where they put like the giant bags, the storage that they have before they're sent to the reserve branches. Yeah, Mondays and Fridays. Yeah, for sure, Alexander. Um, I've only met a couple. Um, I live pretty close to Paula. Um, Blues is out away from me. But I was thinking about going to Tulsa this year. The coin show down there in Tulsa, which would put me kind of right in the same area as Blues and several other people that I know live in Texas. So I was thinking about that this year. I think that would be kind of neat to go to one of those coin shows, since I have not been to any of them yet. We have sandwiches. You have sandwiches? I'm there. Like if you got sandwiches, I'm there. So, yeah, the biggest thing is um I wanted to come on and kind of show some of the examples of the dies and stuff that I've made. Show examples of the collars and stuff to give people a better idea on this um on some of these. Oh, mac and cheese with bacon. Oh, Paula. Oh, oh, I'm there. Mac and cheese with bacon. I'm 100% there. This is something that I can 100% commit to. You have my attention. I will ask you guys, since there are a number of you here, other than the process examples and some of the tools that I have already, what would you guys want to see as far as the prime example or the actual example in this same sense of what you would want to help understand better? Because there are a number of different things that I can do. Like I can do different dies with different die faces on them, to give some examples, um, for obverse and reverse dies and light strikes and that kind of stuff. There are some other things that I kind of have examples of. Feed your fingers, Paula. I have that designed. I don't have it printed out yet. Um, and a dial feeder. Okay. The dial feeder, I know that is on, I know that is on the horizontal presses. So that one may take me a little bit longer, but I may be able to make that work. But feed your fingers for sure. I've that's already on my list, and I just need to print them out. I just need to get better references to be able to get the specifications correctly. Blues, excellent question. The answer is yes. I do actually have these on my eBay page, that you can buy a set of dies. So currently I have a set of dies which includes the penny, nickel, dime, quarter, and $half dies, that are all serialized, that you can purchase from my website, so that you can play with the different denominations, more as far as a real example of what the designs, what the dies look like and how they function. So yes, I do have those available. Yeah, Schuler presses. Well, so the presses before were also Schuler presses, along with another brand before that. But the current presses being used by the U.S. Mint currently are Schuler presses, and the mints have been using the Schuler presses since they went to the horizontal presses, which has been many decades. Which I have looked around for the specifications on, like the parts guide or something for the Schuler press. I think that would be something that could be cool, that you can see the inside of it, and see how um, uh, you should put the collar on a stationary dock with springs. Yes, Paula. I am designing one. I haven't made it in 3D yet. But I did start designing one for that same sense, where um that you could actually show kind of the process and it would react appropriately. But yes, I agree. I wouldn't mind 1 cent rolls made from CJ with different channel names on them. Then I can say I'm popular. Well, I mean, I do 3D print coin tubes as well. Like that is a thing that I consistently do because of reasons. Because I have storage opportunities. Yeah, because I really want to make, I really want to make a platform that I can drop a collar into and have this stationary, so that I can actually use the collar to pop up the way that it should, the way that it normally does, so that you can you can basically you can show a live example of, hey, like what if you have a caller that fails to deploy and it gets in, in a position like that, like what happens there? Oh yeah, because I did some for Lemonhead, huh? The other thing that we could show is I don't think I need this much. Is rotating cam for the anvil die. Yes. Um, the other thing that we could show is um die cap. So when a coin is struck, say broad struck, and it sticks on the end of a die, this is your die cap. So it's literally capping the die. Now, when you go to strike coins, like for example, our planchet here, get in there, planchet here, and you have a die cap, and you go to strike it, what you're going to have is that you're going to have basically a blank, um, uh, more or less a blank obverse and a struck reverse, because the reverse theoretically, again, this is vertical press, which is going to be different. But in this example, this is going to be your reverse. This is going to be your obverse, and it would be a struck through die cap. So your design is going to be very, very weak because it's going to be struck through this piece that's capped on top of the die. So it's going to go just like that. So this would be a struck through die cap. Now as it gets thinner and thinner, so right here, like you can kind of see the die, like it's a little bit dark. So if I go thinner than this, now you start to see the die face. And if I keep getting thinner, again, die cap. So you can see basically the full, get out of my way, the full face of the I'm gonna make it super thin. I'm gonna make it super thin. Okay, so it's super thin now. And then when you get to this point where it's super thin, it's basically just striking through basically the thinness of a plating, or a little bit more. So then you can have a coin that is struck with this, and it's got really, really soft designs but it still has like outlines that it could be this right here. So eventually they either replace this, or what happens is that goes all the way through, and then you have your your piece that's built up on the bottom there. So then you have your die face that's free again, and all of this build up or extra coins. So sometimes what you can have is that you can have coins that continue to get stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck and stuck. Brockage. Yes, brockage. So what you'll have what they call a pile up. So a pile up is going to be multiple coins that are all piled up. And you can find these on eBay. You can find these around where PCGS or NGC has actually graded these as basically pileups, or there's another term. It is one giant clump of coins because it's been struck so hard with the die face that it basically just um, effectively not melts them together, but basically crushes them together with so much force that they are now one piece of metal. So struck through die cap and struck through die cap. That's another one. You know, this silly putty is bonded. Thank you, Paula. Bonded. And you could even have a bonded pair, which is two coins. You could have a bunch of different things when you get to that level where you have so much going on, because of the process has basically broken down. Yeah, fuses them together. I'll tell you that silly putty though. That's pretty good for making little planchets. Horseshoe type holders for coins. Um, Not sure what you mean, Alexander. What horseshoe type holders were you talking about? There is like, are you talking about the Lucky Penny style of holders? 'Cause there's a couple of examples that we could go after. Play-Doh. Play-Doh does not belong on coins, but if you want to talk about coins, Play-Doh is the answer. So if you guys can think of any other examples that I might be able to show. Oh, Lucky Charm. Yeah, so those, yeah, in encasements. So there's a bunch of different versions, and those are just coins that are just pressed in into those, which a lot of people feel like is damaging the coin. So, but there are a number of the lucky coins in holders that have been around for a really long time. There was some lucky coin holders that were made for the 1892-1893 Columbian half, and also for the Louisiana Pacific, or Louisiana Purchase Exposition, and also um, like the Golden Gate one. I can make, I mean, technically, I can make 3D printed ones, which we could put coins into, and there would be more of a friction fit, which if I'm using PLA, it's not necessarily going to damage the edge of the coins. Um, but I can. There's actually a number of different ways that I can make those. Yeah, Paul is right. Is that when some coins were taken out of the encasements, and it could also be the lucky pennies. It could be the Morgan dollars on watches and necklaces and those kind of things that they have those ridges on the outside. That people think that those are broadstruck or that it's a mint error, and really what it is that it is the encasement process into a bezel, that causes those marks on coins, which is damage. See, I'd not thought about making encasements before. Huh. Might have to think about that. I'll have to think about that. Yeah, and like there are some, especially like Morgan dollars were really common to go on pocket watches, like on the face of them where they have bezels holding them in, but also they're soldered in place. So like they're really really damaged. Yeah. I'll tell you what, Play-Doh is an amazing thing. Just make sure and wash your hands afterwards. Don't touch coins after you've played with Play-Doh. Don't do that. Wear gloves, do something else, but do not play with coins if you are going to use Play-Doh. Please. And don't tape your coins either. That's also bad. All right, guys. It is 8 o'clock. My time. So I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down here in a couple minutes. I would like to say thank you to everyone who came in. I appreciate you guys participating in my little TED Talk on coin mint errors. If you guys like this video, like this content, please hit the like button and hit the subscribe. I really do appreciate it. And also, if you guys are here or watching this after the fact, and can come up if you have any ideas of things that you would like to see, then please let me know by putting comments in or putting your suggestions in the comment section down below. I do appreciate it, and yeah, yeah. It's the big thing that I wanted to bring across to everybody is just being able to show how the mint errors are occurring with different examples, because a lot of people are visual learners, and when somebody can see the process, then it really helps them understand what's going on. So again, if you guys have any other questions, go ahead and put it in the comment section below. Appreciate you guys coming in, and we will see you guys next time. Thanks for coming in.